Welcome everyone. Welcome back to my channel Crack with Trick by Shiva. So today we are going to start the NEET booster series. As I have already told you that 60 plus concepts in biology are repeated every year. So if we will study each of these concepts and related question, so we can score 300 plus mark easily. So in this video, we are going to start the first topic from the chapter locomotion and movement. So the concept what we are going to discuss is actually the joints. So as we all know that in the chapter locomotion and movement, there are many concepts are there. So here we are going to discuss about only two concepts which are repeatedly asked in every year. So the first concept what we are going to discuss is actually joints. So joints, as we know that, see, these are actually the structural arrangement where we can say that two bones articulate or two bones meet each other. So here, as we know that in our body, 206 bones are there. So each of this bone element, they articulate each other or one another with another by joints. So these joints are actually required for the locomotory movement. Now here, so when we will talk about the joints, see the mobility of joints, it may varies. So depending on the mobility or on the basis of mobility, joints are categorized into three types. So the first type we can say that fibrous joint or immovable joint, or we can say that fixed or synarthrosis joint. Keep in your mind immovable joint, fixed joint, synarthrosis joint, or fibrous joint. So when we will talk about this joint, so here we can say that, see, in case of this joint, this fixed joint or synarthrosis joint, they do not allow any movement because these bones are actually firmly connected together by collagen fiber. Okay, so here these are called immovable joint or fixed joint because the joint do not allow any movement. They are connected together by fibrous or we can say that strong collagen fiber. Okay, now so here the important question repeatedly they are asking from this part is actually example. So all those join that join what we are going to discuss, their examples also you have to know it. Anyhow, in case of fibrous joint, we have in our NCERT basis only one example is given, that is actually joints in our cranium. So in cranial bones, they are firmly connected together by fibrous joint, or we can say that the immobile joint or synarthrosis joints. Now let's have a look into the second type of joint, that is actually the cartilaginous joint or imperfect joint or amphiarthrosis joint or slightly movable joint. So amphiarthrosis, slightly movable, imperfect joint or cartilaginous joint. Okay, so all these names you have to keep in your mind. Now here in this we have to know about, again I'm telling you the example. So always the questions are asked from this part is actually based on the tabular column. So the type of joint and their examples are very important. Now see these joint. So before going to the example, let's have a look into 2 to 3 point regarding this point joints. So in this joint, actually the joints here, like we can say that the bones are connected together with the help of a disc or a pad. Okay, so a disc or a pad of white fibrous cartilage are there, white fibrous cartilage. Okay, now here these bones are actually, or these joints are mainly present in our especially we can say that the vertebral column. Okay, so these joints are present in our vertebral column, and we can say that between the sternum and ribs, we know that different ribs are there. So the ribs is connected to sternum. So between the sternum and ribs, and we can say that in the pubic symphysis. Okay, so these are the examples of cartilaginous joint. Okay, so fibrous joint, cartilaginous joint. Now let's discuss about the next synovial joint, or we can say that free movable joint or diarthrosis joint. Okay, so free movable joint, diarthrosis joint, and synovial joint. So when we will talk about the synovial joint, see, you have to keep in your mind here two bones are actually connected together. So when we will go for this joints, we have to study about 2 to 3 characters. Okay, so here, see, in case of this joints, these joints are covered by a synovial membrane. Okay, so two bones are covered by a synovial membrane. Now these synovial membrane, or it is actually covered, or between these two bones we can see a cavity which is called synovial cavity. Now this cavity is filled with a fluid which is called synovial fluid. Okay, so this synovial fluid, it is actually very important for, we can say that, for shock absorber, and it is actually nourishing the bones. So that is, and it is also required for the lubrication. So these are the major functions of this synovial joint, or the synovial fluid. Now let's have a look into different joints in the synovial. Different type of joints are there. So the first type of joint what we are going to discuss is actually ball and socket joint. See here, ball and socket joint, it is actually present in our shoulder joint as well as in our hip joint. Okay, so in ball and socket joint, actually this joint allow movement in different directions. Keep in your mind, ball and socket joint allow movement in different direction. Okay, now here we can say that, see, one end of bone, it is actually just like a shape of a ball, whereas the another end is actually, it is just like a shape of cup. So this ball, it is actually cup or socket. So this ball, it is actually placed in the socket. That is why it is called ball and socket joint. Okay, so examples, it is very important that you keep in your mind. Okay, now next we are going to discuss about the hinge joint. So when we will talk about the hinge joint, actually the movement, or this joint which allow movement only in one plane. Okay, this joint allow movement only in one plane. Now here, see here, one bone, it is actually having a deep convex shape. Okay, and another bone, it is actually having a deep concave in shape. So this convex shaped bone, it is actually placed in the concave shaped or end of the another bone, and it will allow the movement in one direction. So here example of hinge joint, that is actually our elbow joint, and we can say that our knee joint. Okay, so elbow joint, knee joint are the examples of hinge joint. Now next, pivotal joint. So in case of pivotal joint, actually it will allow movement only in one plane. Now here, see, mainly the movement of pivotal joint is related to rotation, or it is actually rotation. Now here we can say that pivotal joint, it is actually present in our radius and ulna. Okay, so radius, ulna, it is actually present in between the radius and ulna, and as well as in the atlas and axis. Okay, radius, ulna, atlas and axis. Now next, gliding joint. So in gliding joint, see here we can say that, see, this joint, it help in easy glide or slide over each other. Now here the major examples of gliding joint between our actually carpals and tarsals. Okay, between carpals and tarsals, gliding joint. Now next, saddle joint. So here in saddle joint, see, one, we can say that a ball like, or we can say that, or a convex head which is actually placed in a saddle like depression. That is actually saddle joint. So saddle joint are actually present in our, we can say that, in between the carpals and the metacarpal. Okay, in between carpals and metacarpals, we can see saddle joint. Now next, angular or condyloid or ellipsoid joint. So here the major example of angular or condyloid or ellipsoid joint is actually between radius and carpals. So these also some of the joints are actually it is extra joints which are not there in NCERT, but still all the NCERT joints that you have to study thoroughly. Okay.